Pink Floyd opted to score another film before advancing on with their studio career, this time a film entitled The Valley. The resulting album, which would be called Obscured by Clouds, was actually recorded whenever the band was already starting work on their next studio opus. So, in reality, they were working on both projects concurrently, at least for a certain semblance of time. This is an album that will be curious to a lot of people, mainly because there's only one song on here that features vocals from Roger Waters exclusively, and that's on the song Free 4. Free 4 is also one of the first songs from Pink Floyd to get extensive radio airplay over here in America. The second one to really touch base with his father, of course, one of the first being Corporal Clegg from the earlier albums. This album will also continue to be one of those curious and overlooked affairs of the Pink Floyd discography, and this one has a lot of good reason, actually. This isn't a disjointed album or a bad album, so to speak. In fact, it really doesn't have any sort of semblance of the somewhat pathetic nature that Ummagumma's studio side really boasts. However, at least with Ummagumma, the pathetic side of it was just kind of in the eye of the beholder. A lot of people found the experiments that Ummagumma posed to be kind of just disjointed and lacking any sort of idea to it, as if the band went in with absolutely no idea what they were doing, which, of course, as been reported, they didn't. They didn't have any concrete idea in mind, and in reality they just went in and composed individually, and you got the resultant album. With Obscured by Clouds, kind of like whenever they did the soundtrack to More, there was an idea in mind. It was to score this film, and unfortunately, unlike More, where there was definitely a harder edge to it and really kind of an identity to it, Obscured by Clouds kind of seems just to be a band that is transitioning from the studio album success of Metal into what would become the latter part of their career. You hear a lot of the softer elements that were incorporated into their sound with albums such as Metal and a little bit previous to that, and you also hear kind of like the gap bridging that we've been speaking about for the past couple of albums of what would become the latter stage of their career. The problem with it is that it just is material that is kind of forgettable. This is material that, while it does have a lot of good qualities to it, while it does have a nice progressive flow to it, the musicianship is certainly okay. You know, it's average at best. These are songs that are very difficult to kind of remember. What's All the Deal is one that is easily recalled because of not only its very strange and awkwardly cadenced song title, but because of the way in which it sort of nonchalantly maneuvers through 5 minutes of music. Free 4 is not a bad song. It's, of course, the only one sung by Roger Waters, and perhaps the familiarity of the voice may be one of the lone reasons why Free 4 is remembered by a lot of people. Mudmen is the one that comes across as the most vibrant to me. That's the song that, whenever I listened to it, it was almost as though I had a memory of it prior to ever hearing Obscured by Clouds. Almost as though I had heard it either at a friend's house or on XM radio or something like that, which I have no idea or way to confirm or deny the truth of that, but Mudmen definitely had an air of familiarity to it, which is something that is very hard to find on Obscured by Clouds. Whenever you consider the work as a whole, whenever you listen to it from start to finish, the whole entire idea is very concrete and very well crafted. It flows very nicely. However, whenever it comes to recall after the fact, whenever it comes to an overall semblance and perhaps discussion of the work, it's something that leaves a lot of people with very little to say. And most cases, whenever you have that sort of ideal, that means that you have a fairly decently crafted album. You have something that really there's no room for complaint on. And instead with this one, it's just kind of a curious case where you're left with nothing to say because you really didn't feel much. It's one where you just kind of felt like, well, that was a nice, 45-minute long trip, but I'd like to go on and listen to Leftoverture by Kansas right now, or I'd rather listen to, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, or whatever else may have been pinpointed as the album of the week in this particular semblance of time. Considering this was being worked on concurrently along with a much more popular studio album, Obscured by Clouds, though it did chart very well internationally and did okay here in America, it's an album that will become convincingly and continually overshadowed by not just American audiences, however, but also audiences from around the world. The film itself, The Valley, is one that I have never seen, and I think many other people have never seen. If you happen to own it in your collection, wow, hook a brother up. However, it's just one of these things where Obscured by Clouds as a whole body just seemed to me to be very average at best, and it seemed that the focus was certainly more so on their own individual studio album that was being crafted at the time. A studio album that we'll talk about next. A studio album that we all know very, very well. And if you don't, whatever rock you've been hiding under, please just push it to the side. Because you're about to witness the dark side of the moon. The Dark Side of the Moon, an album in which I never thought that I would ever review. But now I'm going to be reviewing it. Well, not right now, but next.